Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty RoundTable Radio Talk Show.
Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Gold and silver soar. While 250th year since the Declaration of Independence is underway, Honest Money Report coming up with Heath Perkins. Trump vows to cut federal funds. Trump warns of Insurrection Act. It's all about the tiebreaker by J.D. Vance. And Donald Trump loves whole milk, and so do I. Welcome to the broadcast. Hope you're all doing absolutely fantastic. This is Liberty Roundtable Live for January the 15th in the year of our Lord, 2026. Wow. Promoting God, family, and country all the time, folks. We also got the nutritional guidelines from RFK Jr. and company. So we have a lot on the table. Yesterday's show, you ought to check it out. We had a great guest on talking about safe blood. Safeblood.com. Use the code LRT. I don't get a penny, but the good news is you, my fellow Americans, have an opportunity. If you need any blood transfusions for any reason, operations, etc., you want safeblood.com. All right, back with you live. It was a great show yesterday with Lance Migliaccio and company. The political not the political but wow. The Big Mig is his website, thebigmig.com. They're on Rumble, Twitter. They got their YouTube channel back, too. That's great news. We dig that. And there's so much to cover, so little time. Donald Trump vows to cut funding. He says federal funds to sanctuary states in a renewed immigration push. So Donald wants to basically get rid of funding to these states. The Trump administration moves to withhold federal funding, they say, from states and cities that refuse to cooperate with federal immigration enforcement. Trump argues that sanctuary cities and policies undermine the rule of law and undermine public safety. Critics are warning that such cuts could face legal challenges. It could also impact funding for transportation, housing, and public services. And here's my question for President Donald Trump. It's good you're going to cut those fundings. I back you 1,000%. Trump says it's going to start February the 1st. I hope he really follows through. But what I will say is this, though. Why are we playing games? Why don't we just tell the truth? Nothing but the truth, the whole truth. The federal government has no business passing money out to states for any reason. You heard me. For any reason, except for the general government delegated authority for certain line items. So if you're going to build a dockyard or you're going to do this or you're going to do that, you might send money to states to do some of those things, to buy land for those legitimate listed constitutional purposes, etc. But there's no real logic for we, the taxpayers, to pay the federal government, pay the states, then the federal government to send a big old bunch of money to the states. That was never the plan by the founders. The general government doesn't even have really authority to take money from the states in the first place, except for what? Certain reasons? What would those reasons be? What would those reasons be? May I ask? And I would say this. The general government doesn't really have authority to borrow money at all. If you look at the Constitution, they're supposed to have constitutional currency. Gold and silver is the currency, right? And the states are supposed to use nothing but that as their payment of debts. So the general government has no authority to give the states any money at all. Now, I realize, that's the ideal. I realize we live in the real, and I realize the ideal and the real are very far apart right now. I understand all that. But again, this is the Honest Money Report. Heath will be with us in moments. But I bring this up because Trump vows to cut federal funding, to those groups that are sanctuary states, cities. In other words, protecting illegals. I agree with him. But you shouldn't give money to states otherwise. Now you say, well, Sam, there's a partnership for roads. Fine. But it shouldn't be borrowed money because the states can't borrow money, right? Don't they have to live within their budgets? But if the general government can give the states money, then, hey, what is the budget? Because the general government borrows money all the time. So now what we've done is we've created an end run round the intention of the founders to make sure we stood tall on an asset-based, honest money system. And we have not done that. That's really the primary problem. So anyway, I appreciate Donald doing this. I give a big old shout out to the Trump administration. Bring it. Let's do it. I agree. I don't want these sanctuary cities and sanctuary states getting in the way of proper protection of our borders based on the delegated authority in the Constitution, that it is a general government responsibility. And I have a problem with the states standing in the way of that as well. But I really want to be candid. I don't think the general government should be giving the states money for 95% of the reasons that they're giving money. So let's just open it up. Open up a can, Donald. Lay it out for the people. Tell the truth. Abolish the Federal Reserve. Let's get it done. Abolish the IRS. There's a lot of work to do for sure. Now, Donald Trump even goes a step further because there's been shootings all over, clashes with ICE agents, government officials, mayors, governors, attorney generals, all these kind of clowns not going along with the ICE efforts, claiming the ICE efforts are illegal. Well, the battle's on. Trump now warns of Insurrection Act violations as Minnesota unrest escalates around these ICE operations. Again, I commend Trump. He's right. These people are insurrectionists. Okay? They don't have any desire to keep the peace. They're not peacefully assembling. They're literally protesting and rioting. They're causing harm to property and person. It's unacceptable, and it must stop. President Trump is spot on right on that reality. The only frustration that I have is why are we just talking about it instead of doing it? Okay, so you're moving to withhold federal funding. Good. Why haven't we been doing that the last year, though? I mean, why are we a year in working on this, right? I mean, literally in, 5 days or something, Trump will be in a year, and we're just getting to moving withholding federal funds February 1st. How much money have we spent over the last year that we ought not have spent? Anyway, I don't mean to be critical of the progress, and I know you can't do everything at once, but I'm just saying these are critical issues. I agree sanctuary policies undermine the rule of law. They do, and that is the problem. But look, it's one thing to withhold money from these states and cities. It's another thing to take the next step. Why don't you arrest these people that are getting in the way? Tom Homan has talked about this. And Tom Homan basically says, hey, we're going to arrest you if you guys get in the way of the law. I want to see that start to happen. Start arresting these government public officials that are aiding and abetting criminals and illegals and those who are trying to literally violate the law. I think the Insurrection Act makes sense. I don't like the Insurrection Act being violated. In other words, I don't want that to happen, but it is happening. And the question is, when are we going to get real about it? For example, when are we going to arrest Bill and Hillary Clinton for violating their subpoenas? Steve Bannon did that and had to go to jail. Bill runs free. See, we erode trust in our American system, folks, when we allow this kind of stuff to go on. We really do. Now, it's kind of sad. I've been telling you that I think what Trump's doing in Venezuela is a good thing because we need to stop these drug cartels and these bad actors and these people flooding our country with literally gang member, high-level trained thugs. I agree with that. However, I think it should be done not the president's way, which is just unilaterally do whatever he wants. I mentioned over and over, there is a supreme law of our land. It is the Constitution, and Congress needs to be involved. Well, Congress has just proven how feckless and failure they really are. Headline says, J.D. Vance now breaks tie to kill Venezuela's war powers resolution. Yeah. VP Vance cast the deciding vote in the U.S. Senate after a 50-50 tie, effectively stopping a bipartisan resolution that would have required congressional approval before the president could take military action related to Venezuela. Now, two Republican senators kind of betrayed us. They previously supported the resolution, but then they changed course and they helped defeat the resolution. And now they say, hey, I guess the Senate won't really work on this anymore because it got shut down, despite concerns over executive war powers. Now, my response to this is, I'm not very happy. What they would say is, hey, these Republicans saved Donald's agenda. MAGA, baby. And I'm saying, what's wrong with Congress holding on to their constitutionally delegated authority? Nothing. But do we really need a resolution for this, people? See, that's where I don't understand. The Supreme Law already lays out that Congress is in charge of war, declaration of war, of marking reprisal, of funding any escalations. The president is commander-in-chief, but only commander-in-chief of lawfully delegated responsibility. Congress does their due diligence and says, yes, this is necessary. Here's the funding. Here's the plan. Trump, carry it out. Okay, that's how it's supposed to work. So I say shame on J.D. Vance. Shame on Trump, and shame on for the couple of Republicans who shut this down. You can say, Sam, you're promoting the Democrat cause. You're betraying Donald. I'm not betraying anybody. I'm just standing with the supreme law of our land. That's all. Hang tight. Heath Perkins joins me in seconds on the Liberty Roundtable Live Honest Money Report.
You know where the solution can be found, Mr. President? In churches, in wedding chapels, in maternity wards across the country and around the world. More babies will mean forward-looking adults, the sort we need to tackle long-term, large-scale problems. American babies in particular are likely going to be wealthier, better educated, and more conservation-minded than children raised in still industrializing countries. As economist Tyler Cowen recently wrote, quote, by having more children, you're making your nation more populous, thus boosting its capacity to solve climate change. The planet does not need for us to think globally and act locally so much as it needs us to think family and act personally. The solution to so many of our problems, at all times and in all places, is to fall in love, get married, and have some kids.
Are you ready to stand up for your community and support your local sheriff? Join the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association and become a vital member of the Sheriff's Citizens Posse. At cspoa.org, we empower citizens like you through weekly webinars, arming you with the knowledge to back your constitutional county sheriff. Together, we can uphold our Constitution and ensure liberty and justice for all. Your community needs you now more than ever.
This is a battle between truth and deceit. A battle between forces that would enslave this country in darkness and between a media that wants to present you with the truth. We are being censored. America's news outlets no longer provide the truth. 90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in fact.
TheEpochTimes.com. All right, back with you live, ladies and gentlemen. Sam Bushman, Heath Perkins with me. Welcome to the broadcast, sir.
Thank you, Sam. It's good to be here.
You're very welcome. There's so much going on, it's hard to even break it all down. But basically what I'm saying is Trump wants to shut down money to sanctuary cities. Trump wants to use the Insurrection Act to stop them. I support that 1,000%. But I go further and say we shouldn't be giving money to states for hardly any reasons. I mean, I'm not saying there's not a couple of reasons, but it's not day-to-day general funding, which has become the unconstitutional norm. So, yes, Trump, shut down these sanctuary cities and states funding, but why don't you shut down funding to the rest of them too, Heath? What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. I heard a broadcast once that went over Calvin Coolidge, and Calvin Coolidge was the president of the United States back in the 19-teens, and he was asked to fund help out these farmers in West Texas. And he said, yeah, there's no place in the Constitution for me to help out. But he got on the radio broadcast and asked all the Texans, hey, please, if you have the means, please support your fellow Texans in the West with this drought. And they raised 3 times the money that was needed. The citizens want to take care of the citizens, but we've been so docile with a third party, that in between, that middleman, if you will, taking care of all these needs that states have and things, and we've lost touch. We send money to the federal government, and they send it back with strings attached. I don't think we should be playing that game anymore, and it's not constitutional.
And people think I'm kind of a bad guy, and oh my gosh, by that, Sam, you're betraying Donald Trump. And the answer is I'm not betraying anybody. I'm merely looking at the supreme law of the land and saying, hey, it's very clear and easy to read. Let's obey it, okay? And if Congress really decides that there needs to be an action by Trump, then they need to get involved and do their duty. Okay, what they shouldn't do is just give Trump this unilateral ability to act without oversight or act without, quote, congressional approval. What they're doing is shirking their responsibility and duty to vote, to authorize, to narrow the scope, to lay out, here's what we're going to do, and here's what. All that was meant to be in the hands of Congress. When it was go time, it was Trump, hey, here's the plan, carry it out. But that's after it's become kind of a law or a directive, so to speak. What they've done is they've voted it down, saying we're not going to rein in the president. His unilateral actions are fine. We don't want to vote on it all. We don't want to dig in and worry about it. We just want to let Donald handle it. And if it goes bad, sucks for you, Don. If it goes good, then they'll all take credit. See, that's the problem that I have with all this stuff, Heath.
Yeah, no one wants to step up and have ownership of any of these decisions. I mean, honestly, we haven't voted. Congress hasn't voted to go to war since World War II. So every war in between then and now has been something that wasn't voted on by Congress. The downside of that, one of the kind of loopholes to that whole thing is you don't have to play by the Geneva Convention, the rules of engagement of war, if you don't declare you're going to war. So all of these wars, honestly, there's things that have come out from some of these wars that are just, they're not part of what we should have been doing. And the struggle is if you vote for a war and we go to war underneath Congress voting for that, then we have rules we have to follow, and we can't bend or break any of those rules. But without voting to go to war, we can break those rules. We decide to go and have a conflict somewhere. So it's weird. We need to go back to the Constitution. We need to have people start voting to say, yes, we're going or we're not. These individuals need to be held liable for decisions to send, men and women of the United States over to a location where they probably have a good chance of passing away. And that liability needs to fall on them and not on just, we're just going to do this kind of a thing without a vote. We need to be held to the rules of warfare and things like that, and not play anything in the background. So yeah, there's a lot there.
Well, and my issue primarily is this. I want Congress to do their job, and I want Trump to be able to do this stuff, because I think what he's doing needs to be done, personally. I do believe that, hey, we can't have Venezuela, for example, emptying their prisons of gang thugs and sending them over here without, retribution or without a response from us. I don't disagree with that. The problem that I have is that they want the president just to act unilaterally. They want to shirk their responsibility. They're on recess or whatever the heck they're doing, but they're certainly not giving the votes. And in the 2025 congressional session, they had the least amount of votes of pretty much any congressional, what do you call it? It's a year. It's a congressional session, I guess is the best way to describe it. Okay. And they had the least amount of votes. I mean, they weren't even doing their jobs at all. And now they want to just delegate more to the president. If so, why do we even need a Congress? Why do I have to spend $200,000 a year on 435 people in the House and at least that or more in the Senate? Why do I need to spend all that money if they're just going to let the president do whatever he wants to? What good are they?
Yeah.
I mean, we can just live by executive order, right? We can just live by kind of a monarch.
Exactly.
See, that's the fear we run into, people. And I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not trying to attack President Trump. I'm not trying to betray MAGA. I'm just trying to look at the Constitution and say, hey, Congress has responsibility here. And they've simply said, we're not going to act. We're not going to rein in the president. We're just going to let him do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
And Vance was the tie-breaking vote to make sure that happens. And I'm just not comfortable with any of that. All right, this is kind of an interesting headline. I want to get your take on this thing.
Yeah. Headline
says, U.S. Treasurer, his name is Brandon Beach, appointed by President Trump. He's now working on they call it a new $250 bill featuring Trump's image on it.
Whoa.
To commemorate the United States 250th anniversary in 2026, so this year. The problem is there's a law that says, hey, a sitting president can't have his money on or face on the money. But this is a coin, so it's not like it's fake, Federal Reserve money at this point. But Beach also initiated the Trump $1 coin set to be, quote, legal tender. Now, that's criminal unless it's silver or gold, but that's my opinion. The $1 coin was drafted and introduced in October. It's got President Trump's image on it. I guess the phrase, "In God We Trust," and liberty, I guess along with the years 1776 and 2026. So we're going to have a $250 bill and then a $1 coin. They say that the coin's reverse will not feature Trump's image, but will depict an eagle instead. Current U.S. law, of course, prohibits having presidents on paper currency.
Mm-hmm.
Well, current U.S. law prevents us from having paper as currency, people. Don't forget that reality check.
Yeah.
However, the bill introduced in February by Representative Joe Wilson could change that. He wants to allow Trump's image on the $250 bill. Beach also managed the determination of the penny production, so they got rid of pennies. And anyway, they say they're going to have a lot of coins coming out. The 2026 World Cup, all these different things will be on the coins. What do you think?
Well, you're not allowed to put any living individual's face on a coin. That's why we haven't had the presidential dollars completed with the presidents who are still alive. That's, people kind of collected those, and those were like the continuation after the Sacagawea dollar. But, so you're not allowed to do that. The closest we ever had was Kennedy. He passed in November of 63, and in the beginning of 64, he already had his face on a coin, which was crazy to think that was that quick, because Congress usually takes 2 years for Congress to pass something saying, yes, that's okay for us to put them on a coin. But that wasn't done with Kennedy, but he had already passed. Having Trump's face on there, this is kind of, you're playing into bending rules for an individual, regardless of how much we like or dislike the guy. You're bending rules for an individual that is kind of following suit, because if you look at the rest of the world's money, you have a lot of the world's money had the Queen on it of England, who she was over a bunch of commonwealths and stuff, and it's a monarch whose face is on there. And yes, they're living, and so they would update the image of the Queen here and there, but Donald isn't. We're not a monarch here, and to play that direction, and to allow certain things to bend and rules to bend, and to go down this direction, even the discussion of potentially allowing a third term, with it being that we didn't allow two consecutive, or the third term after two consecutives. So if you had two consecutives, that would be
you're not allowed to have more than 2 terms, whether they're consecutive or not, as president.
I know, but there's rules trying to be changed around all these things. This is what I'm saying.
They want to say, hey, because he got kind of election frauded out of his other term, and this and that. And look, I appreciate that Trump's done a lot of good. I'm one that actually praises a lot of Trump's actions. Mm-hmm. But I'm also concerned that in their last term, when they become lame duck and they try to make a name for themselves, oftentimes they just end up stepping in it trying to do so. I mean, do we really need a $250 bill in the first place?
Well, with how pathetic the dollar is, I can see why they would want to make a $250 bill.
Yeah, so you're saying a $100 bill isn't what it once was, and so we need a $250. Why not just do a $1,000 bill then?
Well, look, they had those before. They should bring them back.
That's what I'm saying. Why a $250 though, or why not a $500? I'm saying is, why not honest money?
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one.
And if silver keeps going up, you might just use one of them silver dollars.
Yeah,
say it's worth $100 now.
Well, it's going to pass that here. Yeah, it's crazy. All
right, it's already $90. We'll talk about that coming up with Heath in seconds. Free Water Coin Co., ladies and gentlemen. You're watching the one and only Liberty Roundtable Live.
How would you like to help this program reach more people and earn silver at the same time? Call or text 801-669-2211 for complete details.
Breaking news this hour from Town Hall. I'm Rich Thomason. President Trump may become the 18th president in U.S. history to invoke the Insurrection Act. In this case, it would allow him to deploy troops to quell the escalating anti-ICE demonstrations in Minneapolis. Mr. Trump says he may use the act to, in his words, put an end to the unrest, which saw another shooting last night. The president changes his tune on Iran at least a bit, and at least for the time being.
Time and again, President Trump has made it clear he likes to keep people guessing. So just when signals were multiplying that an attack was imminent, he suddenly announced the situation had changed.
We've been told that the killing in Iran is stopping, and there's no plan for executions or executions. So I've been told that a good authority. We'll find out about it.
His comments set off another wave of speculation. Was he having second thoughts? Or was it to preserve this element of surprise?
The BBC's Lise Doucette. Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado pays a visit to the president today at the White House. This after the Senate defeated a resolution that would have required congressional approval of any new strikes on Venezuela. An ailing astronaut and fellow crewmates are back home this morning.
Splashdown of Crew 11. After 167 days in space, Dragon and NASA astronauts Zena Cardman and Mike Fink, Kimya Yui of JAXA, and Roscosmos cosmonaut Oleg Platonov are back on Earth.
And they returned to Earth from the International Space Station just over a month early, splashing down early this morning in the Pacific Ocean off San Diego. Watching Wall Street this morning, stocks in positive territory so far. The Dow is up 192 points. The Nasdaq trading 164 points higher. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Hi, it's Mike Gallagher. Now that we're finally into the new year, a lot of us are thinking about taxes, home projects we've been putting off, ways to get ahead financially in 2026. Now's the perfect time to talk to my friends at Fellowship Home Loans. If you want to lower your mortgage payment, they can help you refinance. If you need access to cash for home improvements or to wipe out high-interest debt, their fixed-rate line of credit is one of the best tools out there. Fast approval, predictable rate, and flexibility to use your home's equity wisely. Remember, many people still qualify to skip their next 2 mortgage payments. Imagine starting big projects or paying down debt with 2 months of breathing room. My family and I have used Fellowship personally. I trust these guys. Take control of 2026. Go to fellowshiphomeloans.com/Mike G. fellowshiphomeloans.com/Mike G. fellowshiphomeloans.com/Mike G. or call 800-510-MIKE. That's 800-510-6453. Fellowship Home Loans. Mortgage lending by the book.
Nationwide Mortgage Bankers. DBA Fellowship Home Loans. Equal housing lender. NMLS number 819382.
Looking for an IT partner that truly understands your needs? Managed IT Services is the answer. We meet with you regularly to discuss your goals and form a tailored technology plan. Our customers have called us a trusted advisor who delivers. When it comes to IT, we do it all. Firewalls, cloud storage, server migration, and more. Say goodbye to long-term contracts and hello to a team that earns your business month after month. Call 801-706-6980 now and let Managed IT Services transform your IT experience.
Have you ever had great honey? No, I mean really good, all-natural, raw honey? Well, now you can, thanks to localhoneyman.com. We can ship out our locally made honey all across the U.S. So don't worry, you won't miss out. Plus, Local Honeyman has so many different flavors, like Utah Wildflower, High Desert Delight, Happy Valley, and Blackberry, just to name a few. So purchase your delicious raw honey today at localhoneyman.com.
The Foundation for Moral Law is a nonprofit legal foundation committed to protecting our unalienable right to publicly acknowledge God. The Foundation for Moral Law exists to restore the knowledge of God in law and government and to acknowledge and defend the truth that man is endowed with rights not by our fellow man, but by God. The Foundation maintains a twofold focus. First, litigation within state and federal courts. Second, education. Conducting seminars to teach the necessity and importance of acknowledging God in law and government. How can you help? Please make a tax-deductible contribution, allowing Foundation attorneys to continue the fight. You may also purchase various Foundation products as well at morallaw.org. Located in Montgomery, Alabama, the Foundation for Moral Law is a nonprofit, tax-exempt 501c3 founded by Judge Roy Moore. Please partner with us to achieve this important mission. morallaw.org.
All right. Heath Perkins with me, ladies and gentlemen, freewatercoinco.com. Heath, welcome back, sir. And what on earth is gold and silver doing right now, sir?
Silver's sitting right around $90.95.
Wow.
Gold, yeah. Yep.
Ahead,
gold's going about 4,617, but silver's really taking the limelight right now.
$90 for an ounce of silver, folks.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to get a Silver Eagle silver dollar printed by the U.S. Mint, then it's what, $100 for one of those dollars?
Yeah, just right around $100. Yeah.
Hey, Heath, do you want to buy a dollar for $100?
If it's made out of silver, yes, I do.
Now, that's really the kind of the point. I really would like someone to go to court and say, federal government, which one's the dollar? And you put this fake fiat Federal Reserve note, toilet paper thing that's worth like, whatever number of cents, 10 cents, 5 cents, whatever it is. And then put the Silver Eagle silver dollar, minted by the U.S. Mint Treasury, and say, which one's a dollar? We can't lie anymore. We can't deceive. We can't play. Which one's the real legal dollar?
Yeah. Yeah, it's the silver. It's definitely the silver, the paper thing.
Because all Trump needs to do if he wants to make a new bill, just create the Silver Eagle and just say it's worth $100 now.
Yeah. You can create any kind of, they can put any value they want on those things. Recently I purchased some from Canada and they had, a silver ounce it had $100 value on there. Only recently has it kind of caught back up, but back when it was $20-$30 an ounce, that was way under what the value was that was put on there. And so, yeah, you can put anything you want. I think there was a petition back in the day to make, some coin, and it was a $1 trillion coin or something. They wanted to issue a few of those. Like, it was just, yeah, you can put anything you want on there. But if you put things that aren't, kind of towards the value of what it is, then you're just playing with fiat again. You can put $1 trillion on a platinum coin, but it doesn't make the platinum $1 trillion.
That's right. Value, whether you lie or not, ladies and gentlemen. Now, what I find fascinating is back in the Nixon days, they pegged gold at $35 an ounce. What's interesting to me about that now is just to get one U.S. Treasury Silver Eagle, it says $1 on it, costs triple that. For silver, not gold.
Mm. Yeah.
Woo, folks, if you want to see reality about how our money has been debased and destroyed, there it is there. There is a little bit of good news, though. The ratio of gold and silver used to be like 90-1. Silver was way suppressed. Now it's changed quite a bit. Silver's kind of coming back and changing that ratio. Heath?
Yeah, we're sitting right around 50-51 silver ounces on the spot price to buy a gold ounce in the spot price. And so that 51 ratio, and the fun thing is silver, yes, is taking the limelight, but in this move from that 90-1 ratio, even 100-1 ratio that it was at high this summer, it's come back significantly to that 50, but gold is still moving up as well. It's not just silver doing all the moving. So they're both simultaneously moving, but silver is catching back up in that ratio. So, but back to that statement that Sam made about gold being pegged at $35. If we use that ratio to silver, because it took $35 Morgan dollars to buy one piece of gold, if you could at that point, it was legal, but that would be a 27-1 ratio. I mean, we're twice that still. If you use the previous ratio before the 33 gold confiscation, it used to be 20 Morgan dollars would buy about 1 ounce of gold for that $20 gold piece. And so those $1 of Morgan, they weren't quite a full ounce. They were 0.77. So it was about 15 or 16 ounces to 1 was the ratio back pre-33. But post-33, it was 27, and now it's wherever the markets take it, and we're 51-1.
Yeah, right now it's 51-1, which is good news because the ratio has been much worse, but it does denote a little bit more of the real value of silver. We're not there yet, but it's making progress. So what I've done is I've taken $46 or $4,617.80, and I divide that by 16, right? Isn't that what I would do?
Yeah.
All right. And if you do that, how much would an ounce of silver cost, folks?
Oh, goodness. 170? Somewhere in that range, I think.
I think it's $288.
God. Okay.
You know, $288 for an ounce of silver there, people. That's what it would need to be. And so you can say, hey, is gold overvalued? Is silver undervalued? What's the real truth? And the answer is you can't really get to the truth. And the reason I say that is because a silver eagle, silver dollar might be a certain price because it's more of a collector's thing, not really a pass-around coin now. You might have, when we talk about silver and gold spot, when you put all these futures and bills or, paper plays on these things, then that manipulates the numbers. And so it's really hard to see where it really settles because everything is so manipulated. You change the interest rate, and that could change what gold and silver do with the paper market. So until you back all those things out, it's hard to get a real handle on what the truth is.
Yeah, very true. And even then, gold is still undervalued based upon the thing you measure it by, so the dollar. That's why it's continuing to go up in price. Silver is the same way. It's far so more manipulated than gold was, and so it's more suppressed. It was more suppressed until recent times, but it's still suppressed based upon what the price should be for these things. An old $20 gold piece back in 33 now costs you about $4,500 because it's just shy of an ounce. $4,500 compared to the $20 that they used to have. I mean, that's the kind of comparison we need to start looking at is our dollar is just losing value left and right, and the rest of the world wants to replace it. They don't want it as the reserve currency. They've seen it be used as a weapon multiple times. We clawed back $300 billion from Russia, which didn't make that any better. The rest of the world saw us claw back those funds and realized, hey, why would I hold dollars if America can take them from me if I don't agree with them? There's a troubling moment where we're at with this dollar. It's no longer the petrodollar. The rest of the world doesn't need the dollar to buy oil because now, due to us taking money back from Russia, Russia can't sell their oil in dollars because they don't want to have dollars because the U.S. can take them again. So they're selling another nation's currency. And due to that, the dollar isn't needed the way it was when Henry Kissinger put us onto the petrodollar after we were taken off the gold standard. And so this whole petrodollar thing is dying. There's no longer a desire for the dollar. No one wants to hold it due to America weaponizing it. It's turning into a little bit of a hot potato, and we can see that in day-to-day life. I mean, houses went unaffordable there for a bit, or they're still unaffordable for most. A new truck at $95,000 is unaffordable for most. Gold and silver getting into price ranges where they're going to start being unaffordable for most as well. It's just the next commodity to do it.
Where do you think we go in this? Because Trump's trying to get a hold of Venezuela, seizing some oil tankers and everything else. Do you think if we basically nation build Venezuela after the takeover, install a, quote, friendly leader, and then crank up their oil supply, that'll save the dollar? That's what I think Trump's hoping for, right?
I would think that might be one of the thought processes he has. But to strengthen the dollar, you need to stop printing it. You need to stop printing it, and you need to have it flow freely in the markets and through other nations, and not penalize them for their outlook or their conflicts that they're in. If you use the dollar and you as a weapon like we did with Russia, no one wants to hold it. So you can't backtrack out of what Biden did. I mean, unless we want to pony up $300 billion and give it back to Russia, I don't think we can amend anything there. And I think it would be, far too late to even try. But with us in the oil down in Venezuela, there's a lot of oil there. It takes a lot of refining to take care of that kind of oil. So it's a bit more of a process. The U.S. is set up to do that kind of refining, but there's other nations around the world that produce far more oil than Venezuela. Yes, Venezuela has the largest reserve, but production, there's other places that are producing and will continue to produce. The Middle East, Russia, they have all these locations that produce. And for us to just, become friendly with one that's close to us, it makes sense strategically if we decide that, we might want to, that we are going in a direction towards war and things like that. It'd be better for us to have a strategic partner like Venezuela that's local to have that resource nearby and not be having stuff come over from the Middle East or wherever else. But to increase the dollar's value, Venezuela's not going to help us there.
I think we need to go about it by thinking about how to win friends and influence people. Let's talk about it.
There we go.
As you are aware, America is divided over every fault line possible. This is intentionally fostered by those who do not love God, family, or country. We believe a peaceful future as a free people absolutely depends on civility. Clarion Call for Civility is looking for funding and volunteers at every level to make our hopes and efforts a reality. Please donate, sign our pledge, and help us in our sacred cause. Please visit callforcivility.com for more details. Callforcivility.com.
Bypass the mainstream narrative with Liberty News Radio at libertynewsradio.com. Engage with charismatic hosts live or on demand. We cover the crucial news focused on God, family, and country. News that other networks simply refuse to use. Think of LNR's hard-hitting news and podcast at your fingertips, anytime, anywhere. Join us at libertynewsradio.com. Empower your day with the truth, because the truth will set you free. libertynewsradio.com.
How many times do I have to tell you? I swear, it just goes in one ear and out the other. Don't you understand English?
Your children are probably too polite to tell you.
Hello? Those things on the side of your head aren't turnips?
But they get just as frustrated when you won't listen to them as you do when they won't listen to you.
Do I need to speak slower?
In fact, few things show children how much they're valued and respected more than a parent's willingness to listen.
Tell me what you did at work today.
Studies show when parents listen, children develop better listening skills themselves. They also tend to have more self-confidence and are more likely to avoid alcohol and drugs.
Now sit down here and tell me all about it.
When you really listen, love is what they'll hear.
Thank you for sharing that with me.
From the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. For more tips on strengthening your family, visit family.mormon.org.
All right, back with you live. We're talking about honest money. We're talking about this Trump $1 coin. They say it's going to be legal tender, unless it's gold and silver. I think shame on them. The best way is to not print more dollars if you want to stop inflation. But they're going to print us into oblivion. They're going to create a $250 bill with Donald's, likeness on it. And, of course, they're going to go ahead, last thing we need is to print a bunch of $250 bills, for crying out loud. Anyway, then Tyson Foods is in trouble. Tyson's Foods will close its beef plant in Lexington, Nebraska, impacting 3,200 workers. They say the population is about 11,000 workers, and they may see broader economic effects, including the closing of other businesses, because it's such a juggernaut there. If you own a restaurant near the beef plant or whatever, then you get a lot of business from that. And when these big business, owners bail or fail, then it's really turmoil for the economy. University of Nebraska estimates that total job losses could reach 7,000 in the area. Now, you think about that kind of a job loss. And, folks, what we've really given up in America, we don't realize this yet, but we will. What we've really given up is when you have a bunch of local businesses. Let's say I'm the radio guy and Keith is the honest money coin guy. And let's say that we've got a local store here owned by Steve and another hardware store owned by Ralph. And, the barber shop is Larry and so on. When I buy something from Heath, then Heath buys something from Larry, then Larry buys something from the local grocery store. The money gets passed around and around and around and around and does everybody good. Mm-hmm. But when you go to Walmart and spend it, then it just goes right on back to Arkansas and you never see a penny again. It doesn't spend but once. And so the plant's closure, they say, is attributed to Tyson's need to adjust their operations due to low cattle numbers. And they say a projected $600 billion loss next year. Tyson employees are projected to lose $241 million in annual wages and benefits. The plant opened in 1990. It was acquired by Tyson in 2001, and that helped double Lexington, Nebraska's population in just over a decade. Tyson's departure is expected to significantly disrupt the local economy and community. Anyway, that's really an interesting story, and I bring it up because economically speaking, hey, what we really need to do is realize that if we want a town to be successful, you got to return to honest money, number one. But number two, you can't let these big businesses come into your town, drive the little man out of business, and then take all the money off the table. And then when they have a blip, one company is about to tank this whole town, Heath.
Yeah. Part of it needs to reflect on the savings rate here in the United States. The savings rate's like 2 or 3%. We are poor savers. We have been programmed to be consumers and to continue consuming and to live beyond our means. And every advertising angle that's thrown at us is, this is what will make you happy. Here are the things you need to have. And so we don't live within our means. And so a city like this could handle things a little bit better if they had some savings, but hardly anyone has savings anymore. And so when all the money that's being generated in that area, I mean, that's a big port. That's more than half the population in that area seems to be affected by this, and not just directly Tyson, but, the consequences of Tyson stepping out. That's a big shift, and we aren't reliant upon each other, and we don't create a community. We allow the community to be, made around us. And so because we don't take an active part in the community as much as we have in the past, it's hard for us to, support. I mean, most of us, our communities are digital and they're across the world through social media. Most of us don't know, everyone in our neighborhood or in the 300 yards from our house radius. Like we don't have that interaction anymore because we have this extended digital relationship system that we're in, and the community suffers because of it. We need to start getting back to understanding and knowing community, and trying to support the local, but also support needs in your area, and stop letting a third party take that away from us. We always just expect, the government will take care of it, or maybe the local church will take care of it, or something like that. We need to start being more responsible for those around us and start connecting better. A community is only as strong as that network of individuals that are willing to help each other. But first and foremost, we need to get out of the mentality of consuming everything and living beyond our means, and start going back into a savings system, and start going back into a Ludwig von Mises, kind of
asset-based.
Asset-based economics, where people save money, and when the economy goes south, their savings lets them step in and fill the need for investments, and they have investment opportunities when things are tight because they had savings. None of us have savings, so when things like this Tyson stepping out, no one can step in and say, "Hey, let's rally and make a owner-operated plant, and let's buy the plant out from them." They can't do that because they didn't do any money. Yeah, no one has the money to do that because we don't save. We're
Ladies and gentlemen, it's partly a savings issue. I agree with that, but look, what good does it do to save? I mean, if I would have basically held on to $1,000 and just let it sit in my mattress, hey, my dollar would be worth much, much less now by trying to save it. The banks aren't paying any returns or anything else, and so there you go. But I want to highlight this, too, because it relates to the economy. I know we're told the economy is great and bouncing back onto the Donald, and I'm praying for it, no doubt. And I think the moves he's making are right over the long haul. I just wish we could do it constitutionally. But I bring this up because there are 1.4 million students in America that are homeless. It's a homeless crisis in the U.S. among students now. Over 1.4 million students are impacted nationwide, they say. And it's a 104% increase since 2005 alone. In New York City alone, 154,000 homeless students were reported in 25. That's the highest in history, folks. The crisis is, I guess takes no prisoners. It's no respecter of persons. It stands across rural, suburban, and urban areas, including states like Iowa, Indiana, Florida, just to name a few. This trend, they say, reflects a broader issue of affordability and instability that affects children and their academic performance and their overall well-being. Anyway, I guess there's a homeless act that's supposed to help. The McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act provides some federal aid for homeless students, but of course funds are inadequate. Again, why is the general government doing this? Donald, stop it. States, local people, get involved. Churches, that's where we really need the leadership to come from, and the real money. Amidst, they say, a worsening housing crisis, local districts are seeking innovative solutions, such as building shelters, starting pilot programs that offer financial incentives to homeless students who have good performance. It's really hard to have good performance, folks, when you don't have a home. You know, where do you sit down and study? How do you, okay, so these issues are real, and I pray Trump can get a handle on it, but the reason that I'm focusing on this so, in a way, negatively is because we don't have a prayer to fix it if all of our solutions are wrong, Heath.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, going back to the principles that we were taught through the Constitution, like gold and silver. Like, if we had gold and silver as our money system right now, we wouldn't have this erosion from the dollar being overprinted. We wouldn't have these issues. We wouldn't be in this kind of debt. Like, savings would actually be real. And in my mind, when I say savings, I just automatically default to gold and silver and a real asset that will protect my purchasing power. So savings in the dollar is not worth it right now. So it's just not there. But we need to focus and get back to some of the basic principles that we were taught growing up. And we're straying from so many of those. Like, we need to start living within our means. We need to start figuring out what is real and what's not real. And, gold and silver have been money, for 4,000 or 5,000 years. That's not going to change. The Roman Empire fell, but yet their gold and their silver are still valuable. So even if the nations or the countries or the empires go away, gold and silver still has that value. It doesn't change. And so that's a true form of money. You can't print more of it. There is potential to mine more of it, but the supply does need to expand.
But that takes work. Therefore, work equals intrinsic value. See, that's the point that we need to get at. It's intrinsic value and work, and real value versus pretend value is kind of the bottom line. And these crises in America, I hope we can solve them, but we're not going to solve them by having the federal government write bigger checks and then say there's not enough money. The solution is for we the people to take action at the local level. Christian principles should lead the discussion and the solution every time. By the way, get dimes and quarters and halves. They're at an incredible deal. freewatercoinco.com. God save the Republic.
Thank you, Sam.